Everybody, welcome to our Black Student Achievement live conversation. It's Wednesday, June 21st. I don't know about you guys, but in LA, it's been gloomy and it's the first day of summer and the sun has been out. I am so thankful for the sun. I live off of the heat and the warmth and the vitamin D. And so I just want to, just enjoy and celebrate the solstice, the summer solstice. And what a great way, what a great day to start this conversation around our students, our Black students. I feel like it's in season, every season, summer, spring, winter, and fall. And so here we are, joined today to talk about, our work here as our statewide parent leader board. Real quick, I'm going to introduce myself because you guys don't know me. My name is Cheyenne Smith, and I am the Director of Communications here at Innovate. I have the absolute lovely privilege to be working across the organization in every single campaign, across our org. And my goal is to amplify, share the narrative, push the narrative. And today we're talking about Black Student Achievement. But before we get into us, and some of you guys may have clicked this link, like, wow, Innovate Public Schools, look at those amazing people looking wonderful on my live. Let me click and see what they have to say. Let me tell you a little bit more about Innovate. Innovate is a power building organization. We have been building power for over 10 years. We believe that the education system was not designed to serve all children, and that the biggest barrier to all children having access to an excellent school is a lack of political will to improve the system. We believe the voices and experience of parents, families, and students should be elevated and centered in education, in the decisions about education. And so our vision is really clear: a high quality experience that cherishes and affirms every student, particularly Black and Brown students, and prepares them for a lifetime of opportunity and choice. But when you ask us what our mission is, we are dedicated to building the capacity of parents and families to organize, advocate, and demand a high quality education, high quality schools for their children. And so that's who we are. We are a lovely, multicultural, equitable, power building, forceful organization who are working for equitable, high quality education policies and student and school experiences for all children, but particularly Black and Brown children. I'm here today as your moderator, so hopefully you don't hear much from me. I'm just here to channel our conversation and ask these amazing guests our questions. And before we continue even more, I would like for our members of our statewide parent leader board who are joining us in this conversation today to introduce yourselves. And we'll start with Geraldine.
Hi, I'm Geraldine Anderson, volunteer and parent leader with Innovate from San Francisco. I have one rising 7th grade son who's attending school in SFUSD.
Okay, next, how about Tanya?
I'm Tanya Katz-Perry, and I am a parent leader on the parent leader state leader board with Innovate. I have 3 children in the Compton Unified School District in grades, 7th grade, 5th grade, and 1st grade. And I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. And last but not least, Deborah.
Hi, I'm Deborah Summers, and I'm a parent leader for Innovate. And I have 2 kiddos in the public school system, and I'm representing SFUSD.
Shout out to you guys from across the state. So we'll get our conversation started in just a moment. But first, what is our statewide parent leader board at Innovate? And I'll pass that over to Tanya. Oh, it looks like Tanya is just dropped off, probably having technical issues. The kids say Mercury is in retrograde. I don't know what that means, but we'll just go along with it. So if you guys are okay with it, I can share the credential. Or would you want, or Geraldine or Deborah, would you guys like to read our credential?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So we are a group of parent leaders in Los Angeles, San Jose, East Palo Alto, Redwood City, and San Francisco. We represent more than 1,000 active parent leaders across the state of California. With the support of Innovate, we are united in our work to improve education for Black and Brown students, English learners, and students with learning differences. We want more available opportunities for our kids to be successful in school and in the community. For the last 2 years, we have been advocating at the state level around the K through 12 education. This year, our state leader board of volunteer parent leaders in California is advocating for the following priorities: Black student achievement. Ensure dedicated funding is set aside statewide specifically for Black students, and engage Black students, families, and community-based organizations to design and implement an effective plan for this funding to serve Black students. High quality tutoring. Ensure local education agencies and service providers across California provide high quality tutoring to our most underserved students, and develop clear statewide guidelines for local education agencies on how to implement high quality tutoring. IEP translation. Pass SB 445 Portantino, which will require local education agencies, LEAs, like districts, to translate completed individualized education plans in the native language of the parent within 30 days of request by a qualified translator.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's get to it. We said who we are. We said we're a power building organization. You see who we are. We said who our parent leaders are from San Francisco, Compton. I'm from Los Angeles. We said who our statewide board is and what our focuses are: Black student achievement, special access to special education, language access to special education, and high quality tutoring. But tonight we are focused on Black student achievement. And this is a word that we've seen across the gamut being mentioned: Black student achievement across the state, in local districts, elected officials, candidates. But Tanya, can you tell me, what is Black student achievement? Why do parents have tension with local Black student achievement plans and local districts? Can you just set us and ground us in what what you believe Black student achievement is, and maybe give us a little bit of background on what a little of that tension comes from?
That's a very good question, because I don't think there is a clear definition of Black student achievement. It's kind of like manna from on high. What is it? You know, no one knows what Black student achievement is, what it looks like, and consistently how it's going to be implemented through plans. And I think a lot of the tension comes from the fact that there is no clear definition of Black student achievement. And the definition that we do have, that most school districts and policymakers work with, don't actually help the students. Black students, our Black students are considered the lowest performing students in our school districts across the state. And you have to think that California is ranked 40th amongst other states. So that's pretty bad. We're 40th as a state, and our Black students are at the lowest performing group. And I don't like saying that, because truly, if we put the same time and effort and care into our Black students, then they wouldn't be the lowest performing student subgroup. And that's where the tension comes from. Our students are the least supported and most impacted students, not lowest performing. there's a lot of trust that needs to be rebuilt, and a lot of promises are made to our Black students and to our Black families, and they're not fulfilled. So we need to rebuild that trust, and that goes into matching our actions to our words as policymakers, as teachers, as administrators, as our community and the village that serves our Black students. That's where a lot of that tension comes from, a lack of definition, and the fact that that definition, or what most people will think about Black student achievement, has nothing to do with the students. It's about raising scores. It's about making sure that they meet certain benchmarks and what have you. But are you truly serving the students holistically? Are you meeting the various needs that they have in order for them to achieve the way that you want them to? So, with Black student achievement, are we really setting our students up to thrive, to be lifelong learners, to be able to graduate and care for themselves, start businesses, things of that nature? Not necessarily. We want to make sure that those test scores go up so we get more money. And how does that help the student? It really doesn't. It really doesn't.
Okay, I know we're supposed to go into the next question. So if you could define what Black student achievement is or what it needs to be, what would you say?
I don't want to get ahead of myself because I know that there's another question coming up that I want to compare this to, but Black student achievement is more holistic. We are looking at the whole child and providing the necessary resources, services, and supports that they need, not only in the classroom, but also within their community, to make sure they are thriving everywhere. We want to make sure that these students can come into a classroom and be recognized as a student who can learn. That's step one. When our Black students step into a classroom, they're not seen as students who can learn. They're seen as students who have behavior problems, students that don't necessarily follow the book version of education that we are taught as educators. So we peg them as behaviors and we try to push them out of the classroom. So first off, we need to see that these are students with faces, that they have lives, that they bring into the classroom that may require extra resources and support in order for them to achieve the way that you want them to. So you need to see them as students who learn. You need to make sure that you're providing services that would help them with tutoring. Learning loss was a big deal during the pandemic. And unfortunately, coming out of the pandemic, most of that tutoring that needed to happen didn't go to our Black students. So if they were lowest performing before, you can only imagine how further down the rung that they have gone. So they need that intervention, push in, push out services. We need to make sure there's mentoring involved, and true mentoring where we're teaching these students about themselves, who they are, what they represent, what they're capable of doing, how they're able to go out and impact the world in a positive way, and not necessarily reiterating stereotypes or preconceived notions, so that they feel like a person who can positively impact their world. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be building up our students. And unfortunately for our Black students, that's not what happens. We tear them down and then we push them out of the way because then they become a behavior issue. So Black student achievement needs to be focused on the Black student, not grades, not test scores. We need to be looking at, what does this child need? Are they hungry? Do they have sufficient technology access at home? Are they able to handle this teaching style in this classroom? Do they need further intervention while in the classroom, after school? What services do they require? Who can help facilitate those services for this student? And it needs to be individualized. Our kids are not cookie cutter. We learn differently, but we do learn. So Black student achievement needs to be Black centered, Black student centered. It cannot be based on how can I make these numbers make sense so that we can meet our bottom line. Can't happen.
Thank you. And you know what? Like, I feel like I took like 4 different topics out of your answers. I heard whole child. I heard, academic success. I heard, decriminalization. But the other thing that I heard, which will switch into my next question, was like, what happens when they walk into the classroom? And Geraldine, can you, let's talk a little bit more about that. Research says that all students, especially Black students, achieve higher with Black school leaders. And we know that there are campaigns, some of our partners at DLI and Delpi, and we have, assembly, legislators working on, Black teacher pipelines and stuff. But can you tell me how we can align with Black focused campaigns across the education sector to really address this whole child Black student achievement plan that Tanya mentioned?
Absolutely. I mean, I think being a part of Innovate, just being a part of this conversation, I just want to be so thankful that this is a very important conversation. And we as Innovate parent leaders, we do hold this as a priority, Black student achievement. We've had discussions, we've raised it at the state level. On a statewide level, us parent leaders have these 3 priorities towards this year's educational budget, which I read earlier as a part of our credential. We are focusing on the translation and interpretation of IEPs, the high quality tutoring, but primarily tonight's topic, Black student achievement. The fact that parent leaders have recently met in person in Sacramento. Tanya came up all the way from LA with LaQuisha. This is what parents getting involved, that parent power movement that we're coming to our legislatures. We're pointing out what we're demanding as parents, what we want to see in the schools, and knowing that COVID has drastically hurt the same students that were already suffering in the achievement gap, right? We're lifting them up. But again, with that said, these priorities, more specifically, the intention of the equity multiplier, which I can appreciate, that Governor Newsom has budgeted $300 million, but with the current funding formula, only 5 to 6% of Black students throughout California would really receive these supports. It's not enough. Again, this is why it's so important to be here tonight, having these conversations that, wait a minute, let's not sit back. Like, I look at our parent group, Innovate parents throughout all of California. We didn't sit back and just think, oh no, the pandemic's here, our kids are not learning. No, what do? We started tutoring campaigns. What did we do? San Francisco, we launched two tutoring campaigns for literacy and for math. With that, LA launched theirs, San Jose launched theirs. We're not sitting back waiting, but at the same time, we're going out to meet legislatures, we're writing letters, but also Innovate parent leaders can't do this alone. So what are we doing, Cheyenne, Tanya, and all the other parent leaders here tonight? We have many organizational partners in this fight for Black student achievement. And I just want to lift one up today specifically. I'm choosing to lift up Diversity and Leadership Institute. They've managed a win in the California legislative budget with an inclusion of $10 million to fund the Diverse Education Leaders Pipeline Initiative. The initial conversations regarding this initiative was created to allow and uplift student equity and pathways to success. I started listening to the initial meetings when these were all being talked about. Amazing people that I was hearing, a lot of involvement. And it was, it's also was talked about to fund the recruitment, training, and the placement of 300 aspiring school leaders of color over the next 3 years. They asked for 18 million, they got 10, let's work with it, let's rock and roll, let's see what happens. But this is what parents are supporting. And I just want to say congratulations to all of us Delphi supporters, because that's what's up. That's what's happening. That's what we parents are supporting. We want to see Black teachers teaching Black students. We want to see a change in curriculum. Yeah, we want to hear this history. Yeah, but I don't want to have to turn on Netflix and hear about achievement that's not being taught in our schools, right? I want to see the Black heroes. We're still learning, I could still see Black History Month comes, and yes, Martin Luther King, love him, but I also know we have modern day heroes right here on this call, right here. So I mean, honestly, we really need to lift up people that are fighting for Black student achievement. And I also want to say, prior to that, I do have a wish that Governor Newsom and the Black Caucus can design a statewide plan dedicated to Black student achievement. And Innovate parent leaders, we're right here. We're ready.
Yeah, we are ready. And I'm not even gonna lie. This is an Innovate quote, but when my mom always say that we stay ready so we don't have to get ready, and Innovate parent leaders stay ready. And
right.
And even in our conversations, we talked about like we're making bold announcements, and thank you for the 300 million, but it's only reaching less than 10% of students across the state, and we need to get that to 100%, because 10% of students achieving is not 100% of students achieving, and that's not that's not a win for us. We're pushing the needle a little bit, but we need to turn it around. And so you mentioned the equity multiplier, and funding for Black students is a huge concern. If you're in our email list, or if you follow us on social media, you've seen, the data, you've seen the research, you've seen the emails, you've seen the letters, and so the money allocated for Black students are not going to programs for Black students. Oftentimes having to share the pot with other students, which, we believe everybody should have their own pot. We shouldn't be fighting for the same dollar. We should have an equitable budget where everybody gets the money that they need for all students to get to grade level. And so the policy barriers for Black students are really crippling student success. Deborah, can we talk a little bit more about what funding barriers are stopping targeted programs for Black students only?
Sure. I wanted to mention how frustrating it is how amazing it is to be able to talk about Black student achievement here and talk very candidly and openly and try to say like Black student achievement, Black programs, raising Black voices, and talking about trust in the community and trust with our school community, our teachers and our principals, and be able to really name these issues. But at the state level, we cannot. It's difficult, right? Because we cannot say, we can say Black student achievement, and I love that. We cannot, it is difficult to put it into words and legislation. And that is frustrating, because that is not naming the problem, and so as a result, we have to twist ourselves into legislative pretzels and start talking about lowest performing subgroup and the equity multiplier and all of these things that make it very, very difficult for us to get at the heart of the issue. And I find that frustrating as a white parent who's trying to build bridges and build relationships with people in the Black community. I find it frustrating and hampering, and I want to build trust. I want to build trust with people in my school community. I want to lift up their voices. I want to amplify their voices. I want to get behind the programs and the issues and the areas that they want to see come to fruition, come to reality in those schools for their children, so that my kids can follow in their footsteps, so that my kids can see them achieve excellence. so that my kids can see different ways of excellence being achieved, so that my kids can learn from a Black teacher, a Black principal, a Black leader. All these things are possible, but we can't in the legislative space. I love it in this space, but in the legislative space, we cannot use the same language. We cannot use this direct language. And it is very frustrating for someone who is trying to advocate for an issue that we all know is such an important, basic, obvious issue. We can't even name the issue. So that is frustrating to me. And, you know, I would love to hear from people here, Tanya, Geraldine, what you think about that, because I know you all have been to Sacramento, and, you know, that must have been empowering for sure and amazing that we were able to be in those spaces, but also, you know, frustrating to be able to try to define Black student achievement when you can't even, you know, really say exactly.
Oh.
But yeah, I mean, I definitely think that the fact that we can't say Black is a big issue. Because if you see that there's a fire and the fire is over here and the lowest, you know, performing students, and the lowest performing students are Black students, if you're going to call for help, you need to let them know where you're going. You're not going to know where you're going if you can't say Black. So the fact that we can't specify that this funding is specifically for Black students is very frustrating, and it's something that I don't understand. In one of the articles that we had to, that we reviewed for the Black Parent Network with Innovate, they were saying that there was, some of it was involving the 14th Amendment. And I'm like, wait a minute, wait a minute. The 14th Amendment, like, wasn't that written for Black people? So, I mean, I'm sorry. Like, so you're saying that because of the 14th Amendment, we can't say Black in order to get funding for Black students when there is a fire over here with Black students. Like, that makes no sense to me. You know, that was a door that we kicked open, and we haven't been able to walk through. And I'm giving myself a thumbs up, don't know why. But you can do that.
You go, girl.
You know, Zoom is just agreeing with me right now. But I mean, it's a door that we've kicked open so many doors when it comes to resources and funding. And we're at the forefront, and people seek out our leaders in order to help push along movements. And when we do that, and we hold the door open, because we want everybody to win. We want everyone to win. But we hold these doors open and other people walk through and it slams in our faces. We try to get through the window when it's locked. We try to break through the wall, and behind the wall is another wall. So I feel like the barrier is the fact that we can't say Black. So with Black student achievement, is it just is that just the niche thing to say right now? Or do we honestly want to see an improvement in the achievement of Black students? Is that the purpose behind Black student achievement? Or is that just something to campaign on? Is that just something to acquire money for, not necessarily actively seek out Black students and their families to utilize that money to help them achieve more, but then yet we utilize that money for other groups and other programs that are already in existence that are overly funded as it is. So I feel like the barrier that we face the most is the fact that as Black people requesting, we're asking nicely. We're not even demanding half the time. We're like, hey, and Big Mama can't even get a piece. So I just don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Thank you, Tanya. And before I go to the next question, Geraldine, did you want to speak a little bit about, like, you know, the empowerment, but the frustration of going to Sacramento, knowing that you had these barriers? I know that I saw that you were both like speak at the same time, so I wanted to be sure to pass the mic over to you to add any additional thoughts around that frustration of going to Sacramento and knowing you can only get so far.
It is frustrating, but I also feel that as parents, we got to be sitting at the table. These are our kids. And more importantly, for Black students, I just feel like I come to these meetings, it's because I'm representing a neighborhood, the Bayview neighborhood in San Francisco, which is predominantly Black, and they have the lowest performing schools in that part of town, and nothing has changed. So, you know, I don't go there alone. It's frustrating, but I will continue to go. I've had conversations that we need to do that every year, go to Lobby Day, get all our partners together and go up there, march up there, do what we have to do and come together, because this is our future. Black students are entitled to be a part of that future. You know, and this movement, a lot like civil rights, a lot of stuff would not be here today without the Black movement. So again, it's empowering our Black students that we are raising them up and making sure they're getting this education.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm over here taking my notes. You know, as a comms person, I'm always stealing you guys' sound bites. Like, that was a good one. Thank you. Okay, and so we'll wrap up. We just have 2 more questions, and I just want to let everybody know we can have a 3-hour, 3-day, 3-week retreat on this one topic. If you know Innovate, you know we will dig deep, go far, and go hard. And that's fine, because somebody has to do it. You know, in the organizing space, is like, if we don't, who will? And if not now, then when? And so we are a few of the many, you know, thousands of parent leaders, and we see some here on this chat. Shout out to you guys. I see you guys in the chat. Shout out to our parent leaders from across the state. I see, you know, Ida, Christina, Olivia, Edna. I see, I'm trying to go through everybody, Cedric, Joanne, and Cynthia. And so, you know, we're a coalition. You know, we join coalitions, but we're some bad parents, you know, across these state, you know, across the state, who are organizing for this, even if we are, you know, allies, and even if it's not our students, it's our community. And so, but, you know, Tanya, some would argue that there are successful Black student achievement plans across the state in local districts. But without a universal plan, you know, with basic guidelines that are held accountable across the state, how do we know Black students are really achieving?
We don't. I mean, we don't. You know, going back to the idea of not having a definition of what Black student achievement is, I think that's the reason why we don't see a consistent plan implemented everywhere throughout the state. You know, there are some programs that do a stellar job, and kudos to them, but the majority either don't have a plan, or they have a plan and nothing is implemented. You see a lot of field trips. You may get 1 or 2 celebrities to come out. They'll spend the money. Oh, they will spend the money. But where does it go in terms of intervening in the lives of these students to ensure that they achieve academically? Or just overall? And I think that, unfortunately, look at this in the form of a checklist. They need to achieve these certain areas in order for this plan to be constructed. We're constructing it around what works for the school district. Once again, we're not looking at the student. So we're looking at, okay, let's do test scores. Let's make sure we're doing intervention around math and English language arts. Okay, but there's so many other subjects that our students need assistance with. And, you know, there's you need mentoring, you need tutoring, you need to, yes, it's great for them to have opportunities to go out and go to field trips. But if you're using behavior as a way to prevent them from going on these field trips that are specifically meant for Black students, I don't see how you can do that. So there needs to be a universal plan that has what I would like to liken to the, like a basic menu that you would see at maybe In-N-Out Burger. Okay, like let's just start basic. Let's start basic. You got your 1, 2, 3 combo. You know, you got your shakes. You have your drinks. You know, all the basics that you know that Black students need academically, social, emotionally, personally, professionally, and structure parts of your plan around these areas. So it's not just academic. Yes, you get to put a feather in your cap if you're able to improve test scores. And these students are now performing and they're no longer in tier 3 or tier 2 or tier 3, and they've moved up to tier 1. You don't need to do so much intervention. Yes, you can do the academic portion, but there's social emotional learning that needs to be happening as well. You need to be making sure some of these students have no food at home. They have housing insecurity. They don't have technology. There are a lot of other issues that affect the academic piece. So I feel like if there is a universal plan that hits all of these areas and it's implemented across the state, universally, hitting, you know, your 1, 2, 3 combos. And then if you need to use the not so secret menu in your own school district to address specific things within your school district that's not being hit in that basic plan, then that's fine. But I feel like it needs to be done universally, and there needs to be transparency and accountability. We as parents cannot sit back and just trust that your school district, your teacher, your school site, your policymakers are going to do what's needed, what's best for your child, because that's how we got ourselves into this problem in the first place. We gave all of our rights over to the school districts. We gave all of our rights over to policymakers and basically said, okay, you can raise my kids. No, they are entrusted to us. They are also entrusted to them, you know, local parentis. When they're there at the school, they are basically their parents while they're there at the school. So they need to take responsibility, and we can be co-parents in that way, but everyone needs to be on the same team. And that team is Team Kid. And so the focus needs to be on the child. If it's not on the child, and if the plan isn't universally delivered across the state, you're going to have these pockets of achievement. And the rest of the students are not going to reach the mark. They're not going to achieve. They're not going to think highly of themselves. They're not going to think they're going to be able to graduate. And if they do graduate, they're not going to be prepared to go to college, to be able to get a job. So there are things that we need to make sure that are being addressed in this plan universally. And you know, if we use this idea, but In-N-Out, I mean, I don't know, it just popped into my head. You know, In-N-Out Burger, it's very simple, but it's simple because it allows your employees to focus on mastering that simple menu, focus on quality, and focus on customer service. So why not utilize the same idea in education? I mean, it boggles the mind. It's so simple. It sits right in front of us. It's so simple that we could utilize a basic plan that has menu items that addresses the various areas holistically that we need to provide services, programs, and support for our students to achieve.
Thank you, Tanya.
It's very simple.
And you know what? I just want to say, you know, this is a California parent leader group, because when you said In-N-Out, we were all like, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
That's why we go. And, you know, I'm 7 months pregnant. I literally crave In-N-Out. I have gotten one every week for the past 7 months. But what you say, to be serious, is true, right? A universal plan is required because, we can say that there's a Black Student Achievement Plan in LAUSD, but we can't say that in San Francisco Unified or San Jose Unified or, Compton Unified or, Redwood City or East Palo Alto, and in these major areas across California where the population is high, where the second largest district or fifth largest city, and we're thinking about the amount of students that take up these subgroups, the Black students, Latino students, English learners, students with special needs. We're wondering, well, why isn't there a universal plan to address this? Why do we have to run in LA and advocate in LA and then take that same paper and run it all to San Francisco and say, hey, look what we did in LA? Like, why isn't there a universal plan? And so when we talk about who can do that, before we lead into our last final question, right, we have the California Department of Education that has, we work with them very closely, Michael Funk and, and his team, for the ELOP and the ELO, the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program. And I know that a lot of our parent leaders can talk about that. A lot of our coalition members that we've joined across the state can talk about that, and we learned there, like, districts don't really know how to use these, right? We just read that districts are only using a third of their COVID dollars when parents are literally saying, I have a list, right? Like I have a bill, but I have a list of these things that you can do to implement that money. And so when we think of, how to use our funds, how to address Black student achievement, how to define Black student achievement, who needs to be involved in the process, what we're really saying, you guys, that it's all hands on deck. It requires all of us. It requires parents, community partners, community organizations, legislators, education policymakers, researchers, friends of parents, grandparents, after school programs, service providers. Everybody has to come together for what you called, what sticks in my mind, Tanya, a whole child approach that puts the parents at the center and not the politics. And oftentimes that's hard for community members because, politics is politics, but we still believe here at Innovate we can win. And so I have one last question before we wrap, and hopefully all of you guys can answer this. There's one thing, and I know we talked about so many things, but if there's one thing you want listeners to walk away with when it comes to increasing Black academic excellence, Black student achievement, Black student outcomes across the state, what would that be? What would that one thing be? And let's start with you, Deborah.
I would say definitely, which has been on the agenda, I would love to see way more Black leaders in the community who are teachers, who are leaders at schools, who are on Board of Ed, and who are leading the way in legislation so that those voices are heard and that we can learn from them and that they can craft the policies that we need to see in our schools. I would love that.
Okay. In any order, in any order. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't.
Geraldine.
Yes, I think I would like to say that I want people to, let's bother the governor to rethink this city multiplier. That money is there. We should be allowed to say, hey, it's not reaching my kid. And I'm sorry, stop associating Black kids with poverty. I want some of that money because my kid.
Amen. I'm like snapping my fingers.
I can go next. Can y'all hear me? I can go next.
Yes, Joanne.
Yes, Joanne.
Congratulations for the voices that was on this Facebook today. And for me, I think we need more voices because some people are out there without a voice and we are their voice. And so in order for this to be a movement, we have to let the listeners know that they have to get a relationship with their child teacher to perfect the education of their child. And that's the first step. And the second step is to get involved in any kind of movement that has to go to the state legislators And I went up to the legislator. We made a movement up there, but we don't see a movement. We don't see the movement that we made up there. And the movement that we made up there, we're going to see in the future. This is baby steps for us. And we made the biggest step as a parent group is to step in there and talk to these legislators. We moved them, but we moved them at the time that the budget was already set, everything was gone. So the next step, I think we will have an input on how everything moves on in the future. But we need everybody to chain link together with us to make sure that our kids get the proper and education, whether they Black, Latino, whatever their race is. Every child deserves an education. So with that being said, of course, the Bayview has the worst population of child loss. And I am a living testimony to it. I'm not going to share my testimony, but I'm a living testimony to it. And now that I see it with my own eyes, because I didn't see it with my children, I have to do something about it. So this is the first step for me, is to make sure that everybody's listening to this, that they know that their kid education is their future. These are our kids' future, is our life. We're not going to be the future president. It's going to be one of our kids. And we have to understand that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. As we mentioned, we have passionate parent leaders who are ready, who are bold, who are unafraid, who will speak up and who will call it out. And what Joanne said is, you have to join this movement. And last but not least, let me throw it to you, Tanya. What's one thing you would want listeners to walk away with in terms of, you know, the conversation that we've had today?
Well, I think what I want to say is kind of marries everything, but I mean, parents, you know, we have the power. We have the power here. We're dealing with elected officials, whether they're at your school district, where they represent you in the state assembly or the Senate, within your cities, you know, the county. We vote for them, so they work for us. We have the power. So it's okay to use your voice. Utilize your voice. You can be an advocate. And sometimes that's just asking a question. If you can ask a question, you can advocate for your child 100%. That's where it begins. You want to challenge everything that's going on in your school site, in your school district, in your county and city, in the state, because these are people who work for you and it's affecting your everyday life. And I definitely want to say, in addition to that, you want to amplify the voice of your student, because we may be the front line as a parent, but they're the soldiers in the field. They're the ones who have to live this every day, and their voices aren't being heard. So we need to listen to our kids, and we need to work with them to make sure the needs are amplified so that people who work for us know what needs to be done. You can be an advocate too.
Yes, absolutely. And so we said it, and I know I said it already, but let me just go back. We are a power building organization. We believe that the education system was not designed to serve all children. As we've spoke about here before, the barriers, right? And the biggest barrier to all children having access to an excellent school and high quality education is a lack of political will to improve the system. We've sat here, we've called out what's possible with the, you know, the Black Caucus. We've called out what's possible with the governor. We've called out what was possible in local districts, you know, and we believe the voices and experience of parents, families, and students should be elevated and centered in decisions about education. And that's why we're here. Joanne told you, Geraldine told you, Deborah told you, Tanya told you, now I'm telling you, Innovate Public Schools centers the parent voice as a key decision maker in education policy making. And as we continue to do that, we'll continue to get further and further and further. We know that this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. This is not a quick lap around the block. And so we are here continuously to create these bold, powerful movements and continue to bring people along. If you like what you've heard and you're watching on Facebook, that means you're already connected to us. Send us a message, send us an email at info@innovateschools.org, info@innovateschools.org. Go to our website, innovateschools.org. Drop it in the chat, drop in the link, share with a friend, and continue to join with us. We have 3 major legislative priorities in California right now: high quality education, high quality tutoring, language access to special education. But tonight, we amplified the issues and barriers around Black student achievement. And so I want to thank you, Geraldine. I want to thank you, Deborah. I want to thank you, Tanya. I want to thank you, our other members of our statewide parent leader board who are on this call. And it was such an amazing day and it's such an amazing opportunity. And we'll see you guys again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.